Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
Hello, Owen Larry here, Agribusiness Editor with the Irish Farmers Journal. This week, the Irish Farmers Journal and KPMG launched their Agribusiness report, which found that the overall mood of Irish agribusinesses is positive, with 96% of agribusinesses expecting to grow in 2015, up from 85% a year earlier. Consumers, the lifting of quotas and growth in international markets are expected to drive that growth. The report also sees that there's a noticed reduction on dependency on the UK market, with international markets becoming much more important. Markets such as China has now become our second largest dairy export market. We are also seeing a lot of investment based on this growth, and our survey finds that 90% are going to invest again in their businesses in 2015, with the dairy sector already having invested $1.5 billion to ready for this milk expansion. At the launch of the report this week, there was a panel discussion chaired by Matt Cooper, and we also heard from Shane Holland, who's head of Northern Europe with Google, Paul Mason, economics editor with Channel 4, but first from John Paul O'Reilly, commercial director with Tesco Ireland, where he describes the trends he has observed when consumers buy food in supermarkets.
There's a few trends here. Some of them you'll know about. So the free from evolution or revolution is well established in Ireland. It started kind of with gluten, free from sugar, free from dairy. This is a significant part of our shop sales every week now, and it's continuing to grow double-digit pace. At the moment, we're running about 25% growth year on year. So customers are really coming. As the father of a celiac, there's a need there to meet that need, but there's also a lot of people using it for dietary reasons, to control weight, to improve their health, improve digestion. And we need to tap into that and continue to meet that need. Protein is the classic protein that we sell, and we're very proud to sell in all our stores, but also protein in protein milk, protein yogurts, protein shakes, powders. It's a key part of many people's health choices now. Fitness programs for anyone who's a parent of a rugby player now. Protein milk, any type of protein is the only way to get them to eat any food at home. Some of the lesser known trends and things that are coming at us. So coconut oil has been very popular for a while, and it's used as a butter substitute, and in kind of oils, kind of coconut oil, avocado, pumpkin oil, mustard oil. And there's a couple of chefs I know here in the room. These kind of products are being used more and more by chefs. We're seeing them on the kind of the satellite channels, and they are coming into customers' habits. Coconut oil is already there. The other types of oil are coming. But coconut sugar is a new one coming. It's a sugar that actually is good for us, and that is coming its way over the next couple of years. For those who are in the food industry, they've probably eaten an awful lot of kale over the last couple of years. It's been the trendy food. You eat it baked, roasted, in every kind of drink. So I'm delighted cauliflower is the new kale. And this very versatile, very Irish veg can be roasted, mashed. All the classic things can now be cut and barbecued. But also, most importantly, it's actually now can be a replacement for gluten. It actually can be put into making bread, making pizza bases. And with all the different colours you can actually grow it in, it's actually helping get children back into eating cauliflower, which is good news. Sriracha, which Paul may have tried. I tried it recently. One of my team went on a kind of a new product tasting kind of trip, and she came back with this. It's a paste of chili peppers, distilled vinegar, garlic, sugar and salt. Very, very hot. And actually those tastes and those flavours are what's coming through more and more. And we need to continually address our products to make sure we're ready to kind of hit that need when it hits our stores.
So there are quite a lot of things that clearly are not going to be available to Irish producers to do. So are we limited then in what we can actually do in Ireland? Is it with things like protein in particular that we have to focus on?
But protein, cauliflower is another one. We have plenty of it. So I think, but the protein one, I think obviously Glanbia with the work they've done in kind of sports nutrition into the States. There are key trends like that we can work on. I know the IFA are here in terms of really growing, opening up China to beef exports. We've great natural environment in terms of rain, grass to really grow some of the best cattle for export to these emerging customers.
Paul, in relation to the emerging markets like China and India, when it comes to branding, clearly you've identified they want foreign rather than homemade in China. But then what sort of branding do they want? Is it something on a national basis? What sort of names are they looking for? How do you establish a brand for those markets?
I think the agricultural industry just has to learn about branding as not just a service. It's an industry and a phenomenon. Michael Kors was bankrupt in 1997. He set up his own brand in 2003, and today you will walk into any airport and your teenage daughter will tell you that's where she wants to go. So brands are inventable. That's the problem. Anybody who's got a brilliant brand, they know that somebody else can invent a brand that can come at it really quickly. Irish beef is a brand. Irish butter is a brand, to me as an English-British consumer. So I think it is multi-layered. It's the very specific thing that hits the trend, the volume, the irreversible social change we're going through. I'm speaking really generally, but then it's the niche thing, and then it is the quality, sustainability, provenance thing, which I think works for the Irish industry. That's what the Irish industry is and needs to reinforce and needs to become more of. That is its brand.
Well, there is an argument as to whether we should be commodity suppliers rather than branded suppliers, because the investment that's required in a brand can often be enormous. Yeah. It sometimes doesn't work. So is there not at times an argument to be saying, particularly with beef and with a dairy protein, that you actually go the commodity route?
I think this change we're going through is inevitably going to make it just a really simple choice. And that is, everything you just said about the actual Irish natural environment makes it possible, and in some cases easier than in some other parts of the world, to just create really good standard products. You know, that little sheep, 2% of all Chinese food sold through effectively a lamb and beef hot pot place. They just go on really good standard stuff.
Shane?
If we just went down the commodity route, I mean, are we big enough producers of volume just to do that? And I think we'd be giving up what we have, which is this provenance of Ireland, the green, and all of that you know we've been marketing for generations. So I think the opportunity to increase margin is around creating the quality and having a conversation with customers around brand.
What are the analytics showing at present about what consumers, particularly in emerging markets, are looking for from brands? I mean, we've heard examples of brands like restaurant chains or whatever, but when it comes to actual individual, if they go to a particular supermarket because they like the brand of the supermarket, the goods within it, do they have to be branded, or are they looking for things that doesn't matter? Are they looking on the basis of price rather than brand once they get into the shops or when they're buying online?
I think what we're seeing, certainly if you're talking about emerging markets, and I'm just going to harp what Paul has said, is the emergence of that middle class is the key area to look at. And from a brand perspective, you know, they define themselves a lot through the brands that they use and what they aspire to. And that's been part of the sort of journey they've been on as a middle class. So the data says that that's the direction they're going in. And I think, to be honest with you, that's going into our sweet spot as Irish food producers.
I agree with Paul that the Irish beef is a brand. So Irish beef in UK stores, we label it Irish beef. In Germany, it's sold as Irish beef. When you're travelling in kind of Spain, you'll see it as kind of irlandés all over the place. So it is a premium product that attracts a premium price. So while it is a commodity, it's actually hitting at the top level of the commodity.
But that strikes me as that the description of the product is the branding, rather than investment in a particular brand name, that you were saying Irish beef rather than a particular brand of Irish beef.
The plan has been to invest in Irish beef, and that is the brand name. So we put in our shops British and Irish beef over the section we're selling in, so people know it's Irish beef and know what that stands for. I think to try and create a sub-brand within that would be very risky, very hard work, and incredibly expensive.
We're not making too much of an issue of the prices that people are prepared to pay. I mean, are consumers now in these modern emerging economies so obsessed with brand and with their rising living standards that they're not as concerned with the price that they actually have to pay for these goods?
I would say that we do need to be concerned about price, particularly around millennials. They are very price conscious. I agree that they've got a lot more data and input than they've ever had before. You will see people in store checking prices on their mobile and making decisions to leave and go shop somewhere else. So I think you're right to raise that, because I think, you know, we could have this brand discussion but not realise that we have to deal with the price issue as well.
They're a generation who don't want to pay for anything, aren't they?
Well, you know, the funny thing is they're a generation that have the power of the data to actually make these decisions, to actually talk amongst themselves and share information a lot quicker than we had.
One thing that very much struck me reading through this report that the Irish Farmers Journal has published is the population trend in Britain, where there's going to be an additional 10 million people by 2030. Now, given the strength that Irish food companies have in selling their brands and their produce into Britain, Is that not something that perhaps Irish food companies need to be emphasising before trying to be pioneers into new markets further afield in Asia, JP?
I think the UK market has always been the easiest first step for Irish exporters. It's a kind of common language, common standards, technical standards. With someone like Tesco, it's very easy through supply chain just to move into the market. So it is a very easy first step. It goes against a little bit what Shane was saying, that people can grow online and can actually explode. But one of the easiest channels to get volume quickly, to get you up to a stage where you can really kick on internationally, is to use the very easy hop across the water opportunity. Currency right now, again back to sweet spots, the currency right now gives a lovely sweet spot for 12 or 18 months probably for Irish companies to take advantage of the strong kind of sterling and the advantage they have exporting into the UK.
We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
The past few days were also marked by the Balmoral Show, a central meeting point for all people interested in agriculture in Northern Ireland and beyond. The Farmers Journal had a business briefing there too, with a strong showing from all sections of the industry. Staying in the agribusiness sector, our Northern Ireland correspondent Tom Morrow talked to Owen Brennan, the executive chairman of the Belfast-based animal nutrition company Devenish.
Owen, could we ask you just how has Devenish Nutrition developed just in the recent past and how do you see it developing just in the immediate future?
Well, the business is becoming more international as time goes by. One little milestone for our business last year was that we had people from 24 nationalities employed on our team. In 1997, when I first became involved in the company, we had a staff of 23. So to move from a staff of 23 to a staff now of over 400 who are coming from 24 different nationalities was just a personal milestone and reflective of the more international focus of our business and indeed the more international focus of the food and feed business globally.
So major expansion in recent times. What's the key to that expansion, the key to that success?
There are many keys, but amongst those, some of the more important are the key of innovation. If we continue to do the same things, why would we expect a different outcome? Another key is the key of internationalization. Northern Ireland is a very important market for us, but it is a very small part of the global market. So we needed to become and have become much more international in our focus. And to achieve those things, we come to the key of people, both inside the business and outside.
And I guess you're working in a challenging business environment. What are the challenges for the immediate future?
One of the big challenges of the business is the challenge, in fact, of opportunity. It's a business with a lot of opportunity to it, and I'm not talking about the business of Devenish so much as the business of food. Food is something that most people consider at least 3 times a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We have had a huge expansion in global population in the last 20 years, and that will continue in the next 20. The world has become a much wealthier place in the last 20 years, and that will continue over the next 20. So you have to choose the opportunities that you're going after. They don't come easily, so you have to be persistent, and you have to be well organized in many ways to make these things happen over time.
And do you think our existing knowledge of everything that's involved in the business of food production will be enough to cope with rising global population, rising demand?
I think there is far more knowledge than we generally give credit for. We tend to assume that ideas which are older are no longer relevant. In fact, in many cases, ideas which are older become much more relevant when we confront challenges which have come around again. So, in fact, believing in the knowledge that's out there, the good science that's out there, having confidence in the really good people who are out there, and just taking the time, above all else, to apply some of those techniques, some of that knowledge, some of that expertise to the same business would actually take us a long way to delivering on the challenges that you're describing.
Just thinking of your range of products or markets, is there one you would single out as being particularly important or particularly showing scope for future development to meet some of the objectives you have for the future?
All our markets are important for different reasons, but one I would single out is the market in the United States. It's a very large market. There are many interesting opportunities in that market. So it's a country that takes its food very seriously, but there are points of difference we can bring to markets of this type, and that has been our experience in the United States, and it's been a very good market for us. Examples of that would have been in the areas of animal welfare, which has become a greater focus in the United States, the use of antibiotics in food production, which has become a greater focus in the United States, the interest in organic production, which has become a greater focus in the United States. And these are all areas where there is very good expertise, experience, technology and products in locations like Europe, which are very applicable in the United States.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast.
Balmoral, however, is first and foremost a farming show with intense competition in livestock classes. My colleague Thomas Hubert met an enthusiastic breeder who is eager to see Dexter cattle spread all over Ireland and beyond.
Hi, I'm Mike Fraser. We have 3 breeds of cattle on our farm. We have Angus, Simmental, and we're here at the Dexter stand. We've quite a few Dexters as well.
Where do you farm, and what kind of farm do you have?
We have 2 farms. We've one at my home farm, which we keep mainly the Dexters at in Templepatrick, and then we've another bigger farm where we keep the bigger cows down in Kells and County Antrim.
How did you get into these particular breeds? What is your special interest in breeding those cattle, the Dexters especially, that you're showing here today?
The Dexters, we got into the Dexters, one, because they're a native breed and we're very strong into producing local produce. To produce probably one of the oldest traditional cows in Ireland is a good thing. And actually, the surprising thing about it is you look at it and think, no, it's not work, but it's actually commercially viable, because a young Dexter steer after 2 years is probably selling at the minute for about $6.50. 2 of those equals a normal commercial steer, but they've lived in rough ground and they haven't eaten any meal. So it's actually, financially it makes sense. It's not just a hobby. It actually is a viable proposition to keep Dexters, which is why we've now 90 to 100 breeders in Northern Ireland and 90 to 100 in the south of Ireland, from a standing start of very few 20 years ago.
And still growing.
And still growing, and very successfully growing. I've actually just exported 40 down to Tipperary. Next week they're going down to Tipperary, which is actually where the Dexters originally came from in the 1800s. So they're now returning home to Tipperary in big numbers as well.
You've mentioned rough ground, no need for big feed quantities. Can you put any numbers on that? You've mentioned the price of the animal, but in terms of savings?
If you're bringing on a commercial cow and you're having to feed it meal, and even if you're only doing it lightly, okay, which most farmers don't want to feed meal, they don't need to feed, you're probably going to spend 150 to 200 pounds in that meal to get it to the price. So if you take that basically of the 1,300 pounds I was talking about, the 2 price, you're looking at a cost there on meal alone of 150, 200 pounds that you're not having to spend in the Dexter. Now, against that, you have 2 animals, so if anything goes wrong, you have 2 vet bills, not 1. So it evens itself out, but the big thing is that the Dexters can survive on rougher ground that maybe normally you'd only put sheep on. I say to people here at the show, if you're a dairy farmer with lovely swaths of green grass, Dexters ain't for you. But if you've rougher hill ground or rougher swampy ground, the Dexters are a viable commercial proposition.
And does that mean they're also hardier and don't need to see the vet as often?
They are also hardier. They don't need to see the vet. And in fact, on most of my fields, I have a small field shelter built. So I don't like keeping out cows that are in calf. But my younger heifers, my younger steers, like Mandy there, will stay out this winter. She's in a field shelter. And because they're lighter, they don't tramp the ground. So you get both benefits as well. As long as you don't overgraze a field, you're fine. They can winter out all winter.
Great. Enthusiasm there from Mike. Thank you very much and good luck with the rest of the show.
Thank you very much.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
Finally, I hand over to my colleagues at Irish Country Living for their take on the stories that matter to rural Ireland this week.
Hi, I'm Roisin Healy, a journalist with Irish Country Living, and I'm here with consumer editor Ciara Leahy. So Ciara, you've been running an interesting consumer series throughout May, looking at the cost of living and how it's increased in the last 5 years.
Yeah, Roisin, we decided to take this approach to do a series like this because of feedback from readers. You know, our farming families that read Irish Country Living noticed a big increase in their household bills, so we decided to investigate it. So over May, we've looked at the cost of sending a child to college, we looked at car costs, household bills such as electricity and broadband, and And this week we're looking at the price of food. And I suppose the real thing that, readers have taken away from the last 4 weeks is the price is really going up for everything, really. But this week you could really see it when we looked at their supermarket basket.
So what was involved?
We started our supermarket price check back in 2011, where I hit the supermarkets with a basket in my hand full of stuff that people would buy every week. We're talking about rashers, bread, butter, even dog food, the stuff that they put in their supermarket basket. And we have looked at that same basket over the last few years to look at how prices have changed and how the consumer is affected by this. We literally have hit all the supermarkets in every 4 provinces to reflect the prices that our readers are faced with.
So what were the results this time round?
So this time round, Dunnes Stores worked out to be the cheapest retailer again. They really have proved themselves very strong in our supermarket price check over the years. So basically what we did was we assessed all identical items in the shopping bag, and Dunnes Stores came in at €30.51, which was a significant bit cheaper than the most expensive retailer, who was Eurospar. They were €6.08 more expensive for the same shopping basket. SuperValu did very well this time round. They came in second. Usually they've been kind of trailing third, fourth, but this time round they came in second place. And Tesco came in third place with the shopping basket costing €32.94, which was just under €2.50 more expensive than Dunnes. Centra and Eurospar always come in the most expensive. So I suppose it is a message to our readers just to be careful that they are convenience stores, and as a result they price accordingly.
Of course. So those are the prices today, but how do they compare to when you first did the survey in 2011?
The retailer that is up the most is Tesco. So basically we looked at the 17 items that we could compare in Tesco today versus 2011, and that same basket of 17 items now costs you an extra €4.79. That's nearly a fiver. That's just 17 items in a supermarket basket. When you consider that a lot of people would be going in with a supermarket trolley, it's safe to assume that the price would be even more. Dunnes Stores worked out €3.58 more expensive, and SuperValu is €2.91 more expensive. Now, really interesting, although we've just given out about Eurospar and Centra being the most expensive of the retailers, they were actually down in price. So that's good to know.
Excellent. Then any other interesting observations?
I suppose the last thing to note, Roisin, is when we started this in 2011, we had included Lidl in our price check. Now, we never included Aldi because they don't have as many branded goods that we could compare fairly. But when we did our price check, our shopping basket of 25 items, Lidl stocked 22 of these items in 2011. Now, today, they had less than half those items on display, and we contacted Lidl for a comment, and they confirmed that they are really focused on their own brand. What's interesting for consumers on this is when we looked at the branded products in 2011 on the shelf in Lidl, we noticed that a lot of those same products in the likes of Dunnes and Tesco and SuperValu were on special offer. But those products aren't on special offer at the moment. So, coincidence maybe, but really I think that Lidl having a lot of those branded items perhaps brought down the price for the comparable items in some of the other retailers as well.
Great, thanks Ciara. So for the full details of the survey, read this week's Irish Country Living or visit our website at www.farmersjournal.ie.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie and on iTunes every Thursday.